Well, it happened. Over a year after Breath of the Wild 2's trailer, we finally got some more Zelda news. And it wasn't even about said sequel, because this November, Nintendo is releasing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. As someone who has really wanted to experience the events of Breath of the Wild before the Great Calamity, I couldn't be happier. In fact, when you think about it, Breath of the Wild is now a trilogy. Well, yes and no. The context given in the announcement tells us that the story presented in this game comes from Enuma himself, so I won't be too surprised if at least the plot itself is canon. It's going to be the gameplay which should be questioned the most. Plus, unlike Hyrule Warriors, a game which made up a plot to combine several Zelda titles, this is solely focusing on a single game. This also means that, in regards to details, there's not a ton of new stuff to discuss in this analysis. But I will be breaking down each shot and do my best to provide you with details you may have missed. Also, there's no Zonai talk in this video, aside from just now. Sorry to disappoint you, but I mean, what's the point? The trailer starts with a segment of Impa's dialogue from the first game, but with slightly different visuals. And can I just say that I love this background music? I'm not sure if it's a remix of anything from Breath of the Wild or if it's original, but I hope we get a release of the game's soundtrack. So, we get a closer look at Hyrule Castletown and see just how devastating the Great Calamity was. Guardians are swarming the streets, destroying everything in their path. Houses burning to the ground, smoke covering the sky. We all know this is Hyrule's inevitable fate, and that's what makes these events even more heartbreaking. I do hope the game does more with the Guardians, as in the first game you see their capabilities of climbing up and down surfaces, but that's never seen in the game itself. If they brought this mechanic to Age of Calamity, I would love that. With that said, the Guardians probably won't appear until near the end of the game since that's how the story goes. I'm sure we'll fight some though, and they won't be cutscene only. The thought of battling them while we make our way to the place Link fell 100 years ago is quite exciting. I do want to mention that we finally catch a glimpse of some Skywatchers. These were not present in Rome's story of the attack on Castletown in the first game. In fact, this is actually their very first appearance in any cutscene. While the other Guardians are attacking the town, these ones are flying in the same direction. I wonder if they're heading straight to Hyrule Castle, perhaps a part of Calamity Ganon's plan? And I love this shot of before and after for Hyrule Castle. The Great Calamity was both swift and catastrophic. The time between these two shots could have been mere hours since the castle was first to fall. Here's a shot of our boy Link, and he's rocking the soldier's armor and broadsword. And my question is, where is his Master Sword? Given the chronological order of events, he should have it with him. Unless this part of the game takes place before that, and perhaps we'll see him getting the Master Sword in the past. All we know is that he received it from the Korok Forest without the knowledge of why. With that said, Mipha's diary suggests otherwise. She mentions how Link returns to the domain now as an accomplished knight who holds the Master Sword, and then the log after mentions Zelda visiting her and requesting Mipha to pilot Varuta. However, I'd assume that the Age of Calamity starts after Revali, Daruk, Urbosa, and Mipha are already champions. I mean, maybe it's because fighting with the Master Sword at the very beginning seems a bit overpowered. Like I said, the canonicity of this title must be challenged with facts from the base game. Zelda is seen walking down one of the hallways of Hyrule Castle in her ceremonial outfit. I tried looking around in-game but can't quite pinpoint this shot's location, other than it being Hyrule Castle. One thing that's worth bringing up is that in Breath of the Wild, lots of rooms are blocked off and inaccessible. A great example being the Great Hall, which is shown off in Masterworks but never seen in Breath of the Wild. I wonder if we'll finally see this location in Age of Calamity, perhaps in a cutscene. The next shot looks like it's in-game, close to the Sacred Ground ruins, which was the location of the first memory. The soldiers which fight alongside Link don't resemble the ones seen in Breath of the Wild, they're much more similar to the ones from Hyrule Warriors. What's interesting is the layout of the land itself. The Sacred Ground ruins look the same, the only difference being that the pillars are not damaged, but we can line up this shot using the mountains in the background to get a similar perspective in Breath of the Wild. There are several structures in the background like columns and huge walls spanning across the field. If we look at the map, this is the direction of the Hyrule Garrison ruins. Mabe Village is also nearby, so perhaps we'll see a bit of that in the game before it was destroyed. The flag and tree placement is also different, most likely to fit with the gameplay. The group is fighting off a horde of bokoblins, and we see Link approach a moblin who completely wrecks the soldiers. It's the first full-body shot of him, and as expected, he's using the soldier's shield. More importantly, he lacks the Sheikah Slate, as nothing is attached to his waist. The next shot gives us an answer as to why, since Zelda is in possession of it. And it makes sense, because Link wasn't given it until he woke up 100 years later. It's interesting to see this since we're so used to the hero having it, and it's kind of strange to see it in the hands of Zelda. But remember, this is all taking place at the same time as the memories, so of course she would have it. Both the background of the shot and Mipha's presence tells us this is at Mount Lanayru, probably close to Zora's domain. And this is what looks to be a duel between Link and Revali? Sweet Hylia, I cannot wait to see this in its full glory. My money's on Ravioli, I don't care what the lore says. I just love this shot and the way he maneuvers around Link. It's no wonder he was chosen as the Rito champion. I'm guessing this is somewhere close to Rito Village, or possibly within Hebra. The next shot shows a wave of both moblins and bokoblins approaching the castle, and while we know this is in Hyrule Field, I can't pinpoint where exactly. There are several natural landmarks that don't appear or are different in the original, so I can only assume the layout was changed drastically. Okay, so this is the part where the whole "is this canon" thing comes up. We see Link use one of the Sheikah Slate's bomb runes without having the tablet itself. In fact, later shots confirm that Zelda will most likely keep the relic for the entirety of the game. In addition, these runes weren't discovered by Pyrrha until after the Great Calamity, when Link was asleep in the shrine. With that said, it's not impossible for multiple Sheikah Slates to exist since Pyrrha made one to test her anti-aging rune. It's most likely the backpack that she carries with her. So, yeah, there's a good chance that the gameplay of this title will contradict with the main game. The bombs appear to still have their knockback power when thrown, and at first it looks like they've been upgraded to normal bombs, but looking closely, Link actually uses the rune to hit an explosive barrel. And it looks like these monster bases will return, but even better, they can be destroyed. Perhaps they'll act as enemy spawners, and you'll have to destroy them to stop the bokoblins from appearing. The next part looks like it's on the wall surrounding Castletown, with only a few minor differences. Rome is addressing the soldiers, who appear to be protecting the town, possibly from the wave of monsters we saw approaching the castle. Speaking of the castle, things are getting pretty serious in the next shot. Since Ganon has already appeared, the champions might already be at the Divine Beasts battling the Blights. There's one figure here alongside Zelda and Link, and as far as I know, it can only be one of two people, Impa or Pyrrha. Both are siblings, and while the latter looks like a child, it's due to her anti-aging rune. Both were alive during the Great Calamity. With that said, it's most likely Impa. Pyrrha does have a similar hairstyle, but notice that the band holding it up is sideways. If we look at Impa's, it's vertical, similar to the figure in the trailer. And I wonder what Zelda's thinking right now as she sees this. I wonder if I left the stove on at home. This is by far one of my favorite parts because we finally get to see the Guardians emerging from the columns. We know that these were built with the intent of storing swarms of Guardians, but many were unsure as to how it worked exactly. Masterworks had answered this question by giving us some illustrations in which Guardians spin out of the glowing spots. And you see exactly that in this shot. In fact, you can see them spinning as they emerge from the pillar. These are most likely the same ones from Rome's cutscene, as they are scurrying away from the castle. The next shot takes us to the Sanctum with Rome and three others. There's Link in his soldier armor, Zelda in what appears to be her research clothes, and a third person. Again, this could either be Impa or Pyrrha, as both would have been at the castle frequently. Pyrrha had been doing her research on the Sheikah Slate there before moving to Hateno once the Calamity struck. And I'm just gonna say this, of all the shots in the trailer, I'd say this one is the most canon. As far as I can remember, the only place that has cannons in Breath of the Wild is the Citadel. They were used to ward off sea invaders, and after the Calamity struck, the soldiers retreated here where it became Hyrule's last defense against the Guardians. While these are seen in the present day, we never got to see them in action. This shot is either from the Citadel, or it's somewhere completely different, perhaps the castle. Just because the Citadel was the only place to have cannons doesn't mean it can't be anywhere else. Nothing of particular worth mentioning here, just a bunch of style enemies spawning. But it wouldn't be a Breath of the Wild game without a Lionel, and surprise, Link isn't the one fighting it. Instead, we have Zelda, who is using the stasis rune on the Sheikah slate. If you look closely, you can even see the Sheikah Eye symbol appear when its power is used to freeze the Lynel. Wherever this is, it's very close to Zora's domain. You can see the fish head in the distance. There is a story about a Lynel terrorizing the Zora in Mipha's diary, but I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a completely different one. Zelda also lacks a weapon, so I won't be surprised if all of her moves consist of using the Sheikah slate. We also get some shots of Mipha and Urbosa fighting. It looks like we will be fighting some Guardians. I am curious as to how they'll explain this in the game. The Guardians only turned once Ganon appeared, and by that time the pilots were on their way back to the Divine Beasts. It would be interesting if each one's story consisted of battling foes while on their way to the Divine Beasts, only to fall at the hands of the Blights. Then again, this could be contradicting the lore for the sake of awesome gameplay. As for where this is taking place, the rock of the mountains resembles the bony textured ones found at 3 locations: Millennia Spring, Skull Lake, and Breach of Demise. I'm willing to bet that this one takes place at one of the last 2. Each champion appears to have their own abilities based on their elemental, as we see Mipha use a water-based attack, and it knocks the Guardian back by quite a bit. Urbosa is fighting in what's clearly the main plaza of Gerudo Town, and it looks like the Yiga will be a part of this fight as well. I wonder if Koga will make an appearance as a potential boss. Looks like Flurry Rushing will also return as a mechanic since Urbosa is seen dodging the Blade Master's attack before striking, and her sword is imbued with the power of electricity. Man, I love this shot. It totally gives me Attack on Titan Season 2 opening vibes. Whatever they're facing here, props to Ravioli for taking the first step. He is ready to kick some tail. And here we get to see Divine Beast Rudania. It's worth noting the color of the lights. It's still blue, meaning this is before the Divine Beasts were corrupted. I wonder if they'll have any effect on the gameplay. We have yet another shot nearby Zora's domain. This time it's close to one of the dam walls for the East Reservoir Lake where you battle Varuta. I really like this next part since we get to see Daruk fighting the Hinox. His Magma attack is pretty awesome, but more importantly, this is right by the Akala Citadel, since we can see the very same bridge in the shot. The Citadel has so much lore behind it when you take a look in Masterworks, and it's something I really wanted to see elaborated in Breath of the Wild. It would be incredible if we could experience Hyrule's last stand against the Guardians, but I do have my doubts. Maybe Daruk stops by Akala while on his way to Rudania, but who knows. Either way, I appreciate how there's a huge variety in map locations, and it will be great to revisit these areas and see how structures like the Citadel looked before the Calamity. A quick shot of Ravioli. It's no real surprise that he's using his bow. And, hold on, Link has both the Champion Tunic and his Master Sword? That must mean that he gets it sometime during the playthrough. I wonder how exactly they'll handle that, and if it will line up with what's said in Masterworks. It looks like a duel with someone wielding an electrical weapon, but it looks nothing like the rods or swords in the first game. What's up with that? Another detail is, given his outfit and the fact it appears to be raining, this might be taking place while him and the princess are fleeing Hyrule Castle. What if the Guardians weren't the only thing pursuing the hero? But this is where things get real. There's a quick montage showing off the 4 champions and, if you pay attention, they are all located within the respective Divine Beasts. The electrical current from Naburis is seen in the shot with Urbosa. You see the ceiling of Varuta with Mipha, and the tops of Rudania and Meadow with the shots of Daruk and Revali. This is the part where each champion is fighting the Blights. You even see Fireblight's fire sword and a laser from Windblight's gun. This is the moment where each champion met their untimely demise. We hear about these tragic events from Rome, but never saw it in game. I never in a million years would have expected this to be shown, but Age of Calamity might very well show us their deaths. And it's both heartbreaking and exciting in a way. We're finally seeing these events which were brushed over in Breath of the Wild, and I couldn't be happier. There isn't too much to say about the next shot. It looks like a laser was fired from a Guardian which catches Link and Zelda by surprise. This might be the part where they are rushing to Hyrule Castle. But this part does confirm that the hero is fully loaded out with the Champion Tunic, Master Sword, and yes, even the Hylian Shield. And finally, a shot with Ganon at Hyrule Castle. The entire town destroyed, and in the background, a blood moon. These are the events which led to the Great Calamity. The screen fades to black, with one more additional shot from Zelda using her powers to seal Ganon for the next 100 years.
I must protect everyone.
And that is the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity trailer. Before we end this video, I'd like to take a brief look on some screenshots and official art to look for some more details. The first one is this piece, and a few things which stick out are Naburis in the background, the fact that the Hebra Mountain still has that hole, and more importantly, this little guy, which appears to be a mini Guardian. He'll probably fit into the gameplay and contribute to the fighting, and I doubt it will be corrupted by Ganon's malice like the other Sheikah tech. I especially love these pictures of Link and Zelda. There honestly isn't much official art for the Breath of the Wild versions, and I can't wait to use these in thumbnails and videos. I also like Ganon's depiction on the box art. He looks like a snake or serpent, and I love it. Link is facing off against a Guardian here, and it looks like ancient arrows will be a thing for this game. Not too surprising, and this location is also either Skull Lake or Breach of Demise given the rock texture. Here's another shot of the castle and its town before it was destroyed by the Calamity. This is a super rare sight since we never get to see this location pre-Ganon, and it would be awesome if we could visit the town in this game and get an idea of what it was like. Zelda appears to be using yet another one of the slate's runes, Magnesis, and those are a lot of bombs. It looks like this is one of Breath of the Wild's villages, so I'm eager to see exactly how they are depicted in the game. The last screenshot is interesting because there appears to be a lack of a great plateau. Again, it's probably for the sake of gameplay, since I highly doubt it was grounded shortly before the Great Calamity happened. The official Zelda website also has some other details. For example, there's a line of Sheikah script, and after translating it, it says, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. The website also states that we'll learn more about Zelda, the 4 champions, and King of Hyrule. I'll be very happy if the game fleshes out these characters, especially the Kanon champions. Speaking of characters, I wonder if others will show up, such as Cass's mentor and Link's father, who is said to be a knight. Co-op multiplayer is also a thing, which isn't too surprising. And lastly, there's a pre-order bonus for the digital version where you can get the best weapon in the game, the legendary Lucky Ladle. Ganon won't stand a chance. Oh, and at the bottom there's what appears to be a stylized version of Link. That's pretty cool. And that's basically everything I could find. My final thoughts should be obvious. I'm super excited for this game and I can't wait to play it. As someone who has previously delved into the relationship between Link and Zelda, I'm interested in seeing how it develops in Age of Calamity. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to subscribe for more Zelda content.